What's up, Cinemaniacs? I just got back from watching Jurassic World in IMAX 3D. Now, the big question I'm sure you're all wondering is, did Colin Trevorrow's vision of this movie actually bring you back to the original feeling and tone of the original Jurassic Park? I will say, Jurassic World doesn't have the same ring to it as Jurassic Park.
Welcome to Jurassic Park.
Now that sounds right. Now this movie is set 22 years after the original Jurassic Park disaster that happened. I mean, it was amazing for us to watch on the big screen, but technically that would be a pretty big disaster. But now it is a fully operational theme park, and it has been that way for 10 years. And of course, because everybody, is used to seeing dinosaurs, which is mind-boggling to me, they're used to seeing them, they're getting a little bored of the dinosaurs. There's actually a person that says in this movie, they don't feel like they're looking at a brontosaurus or an apatosaurus or whatever kind of saurus you want to say. They feel like they're just looking at like an elephant now. And of course, the theme park backfires horribly. I will tell you right off the bat that Colin Trevorrow's vision of this movie, he did the best job that a Jurassic Park / World movie has done since the original movie, which is quite the accomplishment in my book. Jurassic Park for me is one of the greatest films of all time. But what the original did so well is they had a relatively unknown cast. And then on top of that, they had one of the greatest, if not the greatest, in my opinion, directors of all time, Steven Spielberg. And what he got out of his actors and what he was able to accomplish with having the practical and the CG work mixed together. And it was done so flawlessly that I don't think you're ever going to get that kind of movie ever again. It seems like all the studios want is to just fire movies out and get them done with the CG work as quick as possible, because it does cost them, the studio, a little less to do it. They're all about the cost, which sometimes can kind of stink. And what I mean is, one of the coolest scenes in this movie was what you get to see in the trailer, and that is when the pterodactyls or the pteranodons, whatever they are flying through the crowded area at the theme park. And what it failed to do was not having the practical effects. You could tell it really felt like they were CG, and the way that they were flying through it really didn't look real, which I know it's a dinosaur, so it shouldn't really, I guess, look real. But that is something that they accomplished in the first movie, is they made all the dinosaurs feel real. All the reactions from the actors looked like they were actually face to face with a dinosaur. And this one, you didn't get that as much, because I think it's tough to act when you're staring at a green screen or you're running away from a green screen. Trevorrow did a great job with this movie, but I'm sure Spielberg, he was able to get the actors to look as if they were actually being hunted by dinosaurs. That scene with the pteranodons or the pterodactyls when they were flying through, that could have been one of the coolest scenes, but it fell a little short in my book. Also, on the other side of it, we had one of the cooler scenes with the cooler looking scenes with a dinosaur when they had an interaction with a brontosaurus. Now, I'm not going to get into it because I don't want to get into spoiler details, but that was a practical effect. It looked really cool, but it didn't look anywhere near as cool as the original movie with the triceratops, the sick triceratops. That looks phenomenal. This one, it still felt a little fake. It just didn't feel real to me. I don't know if it was the actors' performances or just the look of the dinosaur, but it just didn't feel real to me. And one of the most iconic scores of all time, they did implement that in this movie, and the score throughout, I would say 85 to 90% of the movie was great. There were a couple of instances, particularly at the end when they had this little romance sequence where they had this little piano kind of playing, and it seemed like it was kind of done by like an 8-year-old on a Sony at-home keyboard. I don't know. It just did not sound good, and it kind of took me out of the film for a few seconds. Now, to kind of get away from Negative Town, I will get into the fact that the chemistry with all of the actors were pretty good. The kids in this movie were pretty good. They only got annoying annoying a few times, which is really good in my book. And the director sold you that they were in danger. The one part of the chemistry that I didn't really care for was Bryce Dallas Howard and Chris Pratt's kind of, back and forth love, whatever you want to call it. It was unnecessary in the movie, but I could see why they wanted it in there. It just didn't flow as well as I'm sure they hoped. But with that being said, I will admit when I am wrong. Chris Pratt really knocked this role out of the park. He was phenomenal in this movie. You really bought him as this character, which I was shocked about because everything that I had seen in the trailers, and that must have been just the way that it was cut, it looked like he was stiff with his lines, but it must have just been the way it was cut because in the film, it was good. So, great job. Great job, Chris. He was kind of that similar character, but toned down a little bit and more just of a badass in this movie, which is good. I'm glad he kind of stepped back from that just straight up sarcastic, wisecracking, jokey type person. The biggest thing I can tell you about this movie, without getting into any spoilers, is that you need to go out and see this. You need to see this in IMAX. Drive the extra distance to get to the IMAX theater. Spend the extra money to get to see this in IMAX. This is one of those IMAX experiences that you need to see. Jurassic World was extremely well done on this huge screen. And not only is it worth it to spend that extra money, you are going to get to see one of the best build-ups to a fight scene in a movie. The fight scene in this movie was epic. After the fight scene in this movie, people were clapping. I would say 3/4 of the theater was clapping after the fight scene. It is so cool. And I will say, at the end of the movie, at least 3/4 of the audience was clapping. And it deserved it. This was a very good and entertaining, fun movie. The original Jurassic Park for me is a movie that I hold near and dear to my heart. It is probably one of the very few movies ever that I have given a 10 out of 10. But to me, the score, the actors, the director, everything that happened in that movie, it is awesome. And I think it's probably a 10 out of 10 on a lot of people's lists. And I know that I was picking apart Jurassic World a little bit, but I'm going to give Jurassic World an 8 out of 10. That's right, an 8 out of 10. It is such a fun movie experience. Yes, the CG work was a little overdone. Yes, there are some story plot holes, and some of the scoring wasn't all that great. But overall, this was a great movie experience. I highly recommend you go to see it. And Colin Trevorrow did an excellent job bringing you back to that feel and that tone of the original Jurassic Park movie. He did a great job of keeping the tension and the suspense built up, and you just felt like yourself gripping onto the seat because of how well he did the suspense in the movie. And he didn't bombard you with the Indominus Rex. He kept you interested in the dinosaur by showing its feet and maybe a little clip of its mouth. And he did that throughout, but you only got several really big shots. And it wasn't annoying like in Godzilla where they would cut away to a TV and Godzilla was on the TV, or, they gave you a quick glimpse of Godzilla and then they kind of ran away. This was done so much better than in that movie. And the other great thing about this movie is they do pay respects to the original Jurassic Park. They have a couple of little jokes here and there, and you also get to see some stuff from the original Jurassic Park, which was really cool to see. So you get some Easter eggs throughout, which is awesome. And like I said, I'm not going into any spoilers or anything like that, but you may not get a cameo in this movie from one of the previous ones. Maybe. Well, that's it for my review. Have you seen Jurassic World? What did you think of it? Let me know in the comment section below. What did you think of Jurassic Park, the original? How old were you when you first saw that movie? Does it still hold up to you today? Have you not seen Jurassic World, and will my review get you out to go see this in the theater? Most importantly, in IMAX. I hope so, because this movie is an extremely well done summer blockbuster. And in the meantime, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel where you can catch our Cine Talk with the Cinebros, Movies That Hurt So Good shows that we do. You'll also get all my reviews if you hit that subscriber button. And like and share, do whatever you can to help us get to our 500 subscribers by the end of this year. Let's grow this movie-loving community. And in the meantime, I cannot wait to see you guys at the movies.